Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for day one of our CXO Trust Summit. I hope you've enjoyed yourself. We've talked about a lot of subjects around what is trustworthiness for AI, especially within a CISO's perspective. We've talked about the geopolitical landscape. We've talked about incident response and how do we create resiliency and recovery from when things go bump in the night with some of our AI models. We've also talked about AI regulation and what we see today, as well as what we can predict for the future. And with that in mind, I wanted to share a couple of my thoughts also on trustworthiness before we end today and get ready for day two of the summit tomorrow. And really, what that is looking at what is trustworthiness of AI. I always think back to when my daughters were much younger and we were out on a camping trip. And I know that my daughter, that was very good at setting up the tent by now and a few other of the camp chores, she had decided that she wanted to be responsible for the fire. And I remember getting the question, well, Dad, don't you trust me with the ability to start this fire? And I said, I do trust you. The question is, what do I trust you with? And I think that is really the same type of thoughts we need to be having with AI because it's probably around the same age as my daughter, at least in this Gen AI form of about 4 years or so that we've been working with it. And how do we create that trust when there is not necessarily all of the clarity around the guardrails and how it's going to be used? So when I think back to the AI regulation conversation, and I look at what frameworks, including the AICM, have and what they've considered for threats, I think about five things that I wanted to share with you uh, real briefly, which is what I believe accumulation of all of the different uh, regulation that is out there, as well as what the frameworks are trying to achieve collectively. And for me, it comes into these five categories. Is it safe and secure? Is it transparent and explainable? Is it ethical and fair? Is it accountable? And is it resilient and adaptable? And you saw today in this summit, we had a good flow of trying to address many of those points. For safe and secure, I think as cybersecurity professionals, this is something that comes natural to the work that we do. Expecting that all of these systems that we're running, the models, that they can prevent misuse, that they are resistant to adversarial attacks, and that they are protecting the assets, whether that's the data or the actual software or the other type of infrastructure that it might be trying to protect. And what's interesting is that there was a MIT Sloan survey done last year said that 71% of companies that deployed some form of AI model uh, without strong oversight experienced at least one significant incident within a year's time. Now, to us in cybersecurity, that is no surprise, but it is something that we need to be very vocal about as AI has garnered a lot of attention from a lot of different industry and people that may not have the familiarity with all the cybersecurity battles and scars that we have from over the years. The second is around transparent and explainable, making sure that we have outputs that are not only understood by the receiver, but they're also audible by humans. And that's a critical point. We see that there was a survey done by Deloitte where it was from global executives from Fortune 500 companies, and they asked them, what is your biggest concern? And 82% of them said that explainability of the AI model and how it's being adopted is its greatest concern. Yet in that same survey by the same respondents, only 38% reported that they actually had explainable systems today. The third is ethically aligned and fair. And with that, we see this quite a bit in the AI Act. We see this in other forms of regulation around the world, looking at how do we avoid any type of discriminatory outcomes and how do we align with social values. Not only do we align with today's social values, but how does the models evolve with our values as they also tend to shift. And we saw that within the EU AI Act, there is quite a bit of mandates around bias monitoring, classification of the risk for the AI in use. And we really have to think about that bias in training data and how we can eliminate that as a concern. The fourth is accountable and auditable, making sure that organizations document who is responsible for AI's decisions and those operations, having very clear accountability in just like we do with the shared security responsibility model. And you see this not only within the AICM, but also in the other initiatives that we have, finding ways that make sure that those that are completing work understand the intent of requirements with their purpose, and then they've actually been executed correctly. That's one of the things I'm really excited about, the validated new AI model that we have and how it's building out some of the accountability and verifying the integrity of some of our self-assessment questionnaires. The fifth and final one is resilience and adaptability. This is making sure that we are capable of handling unexpected scenarios without some forms of cascading failures. We saw this most recently in several of the cloud service provider outages where one solution or one service, I should say, that was compromised led to a cascading effect where more services were disrupted for a longer period of time. So we have to find a way to minimize that type of ability to disrupt not only our production, but then also the security of the information that we're trying to protect. And Gartner reports that 55% of AI failures in 2023, so going back a little bit of time, really were involved in poor monitoring and testing of the contingency design associated with what eventually became some form of data breach. And we see this very often. We see a lot of enterprises not testing and working alongside their service providers, whether it's cloud or an Anthropic, Open AI, Google, or some other organization that might be building them some custom services within an AI model. So we need to find ways that do more regular resiliency testing with our providers and have that be part of our SLAs to have that type of work. So these are just some of the things that I've been thinking about as I see the regulation coming to market, what they as authorities in trying to protect citizens' data and the overall strength of the economy. How do we protect ourselves from this great new advancement? I'm very optimistic, but just like I was with my daughter around the campfire, we have to trust, but keep our eyes wide open. And with that, I hope you do join us and collaborate and contribute to many of the other things that CSA is building right now, and that you stay tuned and join us tomorrow for day 2 of the CXO Trust Summit. Thank you, everyone.